Well, we have a very special speaker with us this morning. Even though we've met him before, we know Dr. Ben-Gidi, it's always very, very special. Thank you. Would you come forward, please? And I would say I would hand the baton over to you, but we'll call it a microphone in this case.
Toda Rabba, thank you very much. The Torah portion today of Sefer Bamidbar, Book of Numbers, chapter 1 through 4, verse 17, it's a very detailed one. So we're not going to go over everything. It includes many names and assignments, and they're very particular. And even if I mentioned it all to you, and even if I read that, you won't remember it 5 minutes after or less. There are many names. But we'll focus on a few aspects of that Torah portion and things that are related to this particular Torah portion. And I think they are quite interesting. We'll take the first section, this session, and we'll speak about that. But also there is a teaching of the New Testament from Matthew today. And that one is in particularly interesting, although I will not touch on every reference. This is an amazing chapter. It's from Matthew chapter 4, 1 through 17. And this is an amazing encounter, and you probably know with whom is this encounter if you saw that in the notes. This is an encounter of Yeshua, Jesus, with the Satan, with Satan. Now, the word Satan is not just like a name. There are many, as we do the Bible with Pastor Mark, the Mark Bill's Bible, we come across words there in the New Testament that Pastor Mark doesn't fully agree. Like the word, instead of, many times they use the word devil, which is kind of a medieval word. It's not something that is really ancient. Old, but not ancient. And the word devil is not really correct there. Even, the word devil can be used even in a positive fashion. Like, mothers here, you can say, oh, you little devil, what did you do again, So there is nothing positive in the word Satan. Unlike the word devil gets kind of a cutesy, connotation. But there is nothing cute in the word Satan. Well, we'll do that. This is the second part of this session. I hope, where is my time? Oh, there. Okay. I will fit it in. We'll definitely fit it in. I will not expand on every aspect because this is really the domain of Pastor Mark in the Bible, in Mark Bill's Bible. But he has an amazing connection and references to every word there to the Old Testament. And this is one of my greatest discoveries when I'm helping Pastor Mark doing his great mission of the Mark Bill's Bible. I was amazed. We just completed now, we're kind of rushing with that, we just completed now the book of Acts. And in the book of Acts, I was astonished and bewildered to find out there are at least 600 references there to the Old Testament. I was so sure, that book is New Testament, is Christian. I did not grow up with that. I grew up with the Old Testament. So I'm not that familiar by nature with that book. So when I read a lot of mysterious things there, the book of Revelations especially, I'm sorry, this is not Acts, we're talking about Revelations, but also in Acts too. Revelation was completed before. But you look there and there are many odd creatures and entities and all kind of stories, and I say, wow, what kind of, deep imagination. Each one of them is grounded and bounded, and it's connected so closely to the Old Testament. And I'm sitting there, and Pastor Mark is showing the connection, and I was pretty astonished. This whole work is like amazing. But that's for the second part. We'll talk about the Matthew, and I will not cover everything because that's the domain of Pastor Mark, but I'll mention a few. Let us go to the Torah portion of today. Actually, many Israelis, we say it, the book Bereshit, Shmot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, and literally it means in the desert, But it's really the name of the book, unlike many people think, it is Bamidbar, not Bamidbar, which is kind of strange. But we learned about biblical Hebrew never to be relying on, for me, for sure, on my own knowledge, including something that relates to my own name. There's one book there. It's called the Book of Daniel, right? Everybody knows. Here's my grandson here from Israel. Ask any Israeli, how do you spell it with vowels? And they'll tell you, it's very simple. Daniel, right? That's how it sounds to you, right? Wrong. So, wrong. It's not Daniel. But what do you mean it's not Daniel? There is Nathanael, God is given. And every word that ending with L, it has to do with God. But little did we know of our ancient forefathers and sages knew. If you open the Bible in Hebrew, you'll see that it's not Daniel. I had a conversation once with, I think he's the chief rabbi of Washington, D.C., and I was teaching in churches and so on, and other people are not extremely excited of me doing that. And I said, okay, but without mentioning names here, I already did, but without mentioning names, and I said, of course, a little condescending to me because I'm working with Christians, not so nice. And without being too condescending, I said, we can't really, we think that we know everything. Do you know, by the way, the name Daniel? So, come on, come on. Of course, how do you spell it? I said, I'm not the first grader that you ask me these questions. So we all are, but go ahead, spell it, put him on the spot. And what was wrong? So he said, Daniel, Dalet with the kamatz, with the A, Nun, the letter Nun with the dot underneath. If you don't know Hebrew, it's a time to join up, Who is teaching Hebrew? Nun with the dot, Yud, Aleph with 2 dots underneath, and a Lamed. They say, open up your Bible. I say, what? Are you putting me in the test of a first grader? Open the Bible. And I said, I didn't see that. There was no video, but it was this, scratching the head. It's actually written as Daniel. The 2 dots, the A sound is under the Yud. I think that you're surprised too, Matthew, right? It's the 2 dots under the Yud. So it is spelled in our Hebrew book as Daniel. And what's the answer? What's the reasoning? Ask me and I'll tell you, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. But this is what the ancient sages did. It could be the accent there in Babylonia when the prophet Daniel was active, and maybe they say it's Daniel, but it's written as Daniel and unlike Daniel. Okay, so nothing is granted even in that name, and so is the chapter or the Torah portion today is Bamidbar and not Bamidbar. What happens there, this is on the journey to the land out of Egypt after exiting and leaving to the Holy Land, back to the Holy Land. Moses is getting the commands there, not on Mount Sinai now, but in the desert itself. And the first verse says, and here is a timing, which is important, as you know, Pastor Mark, he can be an FBI, an FBI detective when it comes to timelines, and he can tell you the age of everyone in the Bible and what age was Abraham when his grandson was doing that. I mean, everything is like, he needs to know everything in place, timeline. So for the timeline and for the respect of the system of Pastor Mark, God spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, Bamidbar Sinai, in the tent of meeting, Ohel Moed. But if you follow the teaching here, one of the main teaching here in this congregation, Tour the World, is the idea, and this is the whole book of Pastor Mark, not one, every book is based on the Moadim, right? Moadim, he speaks about the appointed time. So nothing is haphazard, nothing is accidental, and nothing happening just out of the blue and out of the sleeve. Things are appointed. Everything has an appointed time. And doing the very diligent work and looking at the, if you have the book, the America at Work, look at the back there, the charts, very precise, working with NASA. Pastor Mark points out with every Moadim, every Moed, since the beginning of the world, we could calculate it, there are maps and there is chart that he made. And you can see the appointed times that we know, that we are familiar with, and we can see in our spectrum, are the eclipses, right? Solar and lunar eclipses. And they're happening in appointed time. 1,000 years can be predicted to the future on those. And the important thing in this research is showing what is the correlation between those mo'adim, those appointed times, and how does history folds, what happened in those days, and how unique are those. I learned that there are many kinds of eclipses, but the timing is a very important thing. It's not haphazard, even though it looks like, well, it happened on that day. No. That day is an appointed time. So here, God speaks to Moses in Mount Sinai, in the Ohel Moed, in the tent of meeting, Be'echad l'chodesh, on the first day of the month, of the second month, which is the first month. What is the first month? You remember? In what? The Nisan, right. And what is the second month? Then Iyar, right? The months after, Nisan, Iyar. So you meet, and that meeting is happening in the first of the second month, at the second year on the departure from the land of Egypt to say. Now, what is the uniqueness? What is so unique in this particular day? We don't know, but there is such an important date, second day on the second month of the departure of nothing. Remember, nothing is haphazard. Maybe days will tell, but there is an importance in the dates. I learned it. I really thought for years that it's kind of haphazard. What happened on that day? So they mention it, like what day you got your driving license. Do you remember anybody? No, I mean, I got it sometime. What year? You don't even know, sometimes. But those are small things in our lives. But when it comes to a nation, those are not coincidental days. And sometimes we don't really know. I mean, I'm sure that if Pastor Mark watches it, I'll tell you what it is, He will go and deeply research that and see what was that in this appointed day. But something very important is happening there. And he tells them, take census. Wow, counting the heads of people. Well, not, how do you do a census? But let me read that. Take census of the congregation of the people of Israel by families, by the house of their fathers, according to the number of names, every male by their polls. Well, there are not too much feminists at the time. They didn't count women, right? It goes by the males. Patriarchalic family. Patriarchalic in the sense of the father is the, how do you say it in politically correct terminology, is the one who's calling the shots. Okay, very politically correct. They go by the father. Later on, though it's not the case in Israel today, the system is called the patriarchalic, patria by the father. Later on, so to that sense, it really didn't matter at that time to determine the faith of the child that is born, who was the mother. So every one of the forefathers of the Jewish nation really did not marry a Jewish woman. They married women that came from the nations because it didn't matter who is going to be. But think of that, why it didn't matter. The father is not going to sit at home and teach the child at the ancient time, right? So why didn't it matter? Who do you get your education and the instruction and the structure of your faith and thinking, if not from the mother? But it wasn't the system. It mattered only who the father was, and the children were considered to be part of the children of Israel. So it really didn't matter who the mother was, from what nation she came, right? But they're very important. Even Rachel and Leah, I mean, he picked it up from Haran, from the kind of Aramaic people there, right? He went all the way, sent his messengers and brought all these women to his children, Abraham, and so did Jacob, and so did Isaac. And they brought them, and in the moment they were there, they became part of Israel, marrying the father. The system today, it's the matriarchalic, the motherly system. So in Israel, if somebody, how do you consider somebody being Jewish or not Jewish? By the mother only. And you can go second generation back and even third. And some people need to prove, it's called the law of return. And so they automatically consider to be Jewish by the mother. And the rationale, of course, is the education. The mother is at home educating the children, and basically they'll deliver the faith and the principles and everything that relates to the faith. And this is the way it works. Now, what made this change? What really was the cause of that? It's a big sociological and psychological issue, but that's how it changed between them and then. At that time, counting males. So here's something pretty interesting. Normally, in all, as far as I know, in all armies in the world, what year would you went to the army? Same, what year, age? 18, right? And I was drafting at the age of 18, and so I thought it was forever. U.S. military, did you serve? Some of you served? And you go to service, you don't go 17 or 16, right? And there's no mandatory draft in America, you don't, you know. But the age is 18, and anywhere else is 18. But look what happens here. So he's counting during the census from 20 years old and upward. Listen to this word: all who are able to go forth to war in Israel, you and Aaron shall count them by their armies. So the age of going to the army, in Hebrew it's called Kol Yotze Tzava, anyone who is capable of going to service. 20, that's a very peculiar age. Think of that. As far as we know, our four mothers, Rachel, they didn't marry at the age of 20 or 30 and say, oh, I need to build up my personality and, all that, and, let me shape up and, okay, and, I need to know who I'm. No, they married in the moment they could bear children, right? We know that's the way it was. And they married at the age of, 14, 13. That was the age that our foremothers really got married and had children, very young. But here we go. A boy that is 18 or 19 is still not capable of fighting. Girls are capable of marrying at that age, and he, 18 and 19, they won't take him to the army yet. You're too young. Do you feel kind of a sharp dissonance between the two attitudes of age? Very strange, right? 20. That's the date. We can count them to be part of the military. So this is a census. How do you count people? I mean, this is it's complicated even today. Census is a very sensitive issue to count people. I'll give you an example that is really current news, kind of in the last 50 years, the current news. Israel is being attacked from Lebanon daily by the group called Hezbollah. That group called Hezbollah is supported by Iran. It's actually a proxy of Iran, and it's part of the big picture that's happening. I mean, Israel is a small Satan in their eyes. United States is the great Satan, as we mentioned, the great Satan. And it's like a long war waged actually between them and the West. And America is so far representing the West, the openness, the freedom, which does not live side by side with the ideology that comes from that region. Look what happened in Iran. Somebody tried to think or speak, and you know what happens to them. Likewise, it exerted its ideology, and it's an export, and this export is supporting terror and ideology at the same time. That group is called the Shiites group. In Islam, there are two main factions. One is called the Sunni Islam. For instance, the Palestinians are Sunni Muslims, right? And the other one is called the Shiite. Lebanon is a very strange, and we're talking about the census here. I'll tell you what's happening. Most of the Islamic world is Sunni, but it dates back to the time of Muhammad, and after he left the world, they split between Shiites and so Shia coming from the Hebrew word Si'ah, a group, a sect. And so those who followed the descendants of Muhammad are the Shiites. And those who created, which is kind of sacrilegious, created a new leadership, the caliphs, the caliphate, were considered to be, those are the sacrilegious at the time. You know, they didn't go by the descendants of Muhammad. They are the Sunni. And that's ancient, never mind, House of Umayyah from Saudi Arabia and so on. But Lebanon is a very interesting country. So the old rule there in that country, it has to do with census, was that the president is being elected from the dominant and the largest group in Lebanon. In Lebanon, mainly there are Shiites, there are Christians, very many Christians, and Druze, which is kind of a religion, it's a sect that has a secret religion. They won't tell it even to their own children unless they are 30 years of age. They won't tell it what's their faith, what's the principle of faith. But one of the principles that helps their survival of those Druze is loyalty to the country under which they live. So Druze people in Israel, and you can attest to that, they are in the military, they are very loyal to Israel. Druze people in Israel, they are very good fighters. They feel responsibility and dedication and devotion to Israel, those who live in Israel. But those who live in Syria are devoted to Syria. And those who live in Lebanon, they are devoted to Lebanon, not to any other country. This is how they survive. It might be part of their religion. I had friends, you know, one of them I even kind of built it up and made him later on to be a journalist even in Israeli television. I gave him his first job as journalist, and he thanked me and said, what do you believe? What is your favorite? I can talk, I don't know. Actually, I don't know. And he didn't know. He grew up in Nahariya. Your mom knows him, Muni Faris. So they have a secret religion. Anyway, in Lebanon, so the president originally was a Christian, Maronite, you know, Christians. And I met them in 1982 in Lebanon. And the president was Christian, but the population changed in Lebanon. So in order to know what happens and who now deserves to be the president, you need to make a census. But they were in power and they knew that the demographic changed so much, and they refused to do a census again. Because of that refusal, there's a war there in Lebanon, you know, the civil war, big civil war. And it's still going on. Today, the president in Lebanon is a puppet. It's a Christian puppet that is a yes man of Hezbollah and Iran. So he's a big hater of Israel. And although he's Christian, but the only reason that he's still alive is because he does exactly what Hezbollah and Iran is demanding him to do. And this is how it goes. It's a military inside the state. There is no really, in fact, there is no such a state as Lebanon today. It's completely, it's on the outside. U.S. is still supporting it and so on, but it doesn't have any kind of decision-making power. Hezbollah, and actually in Iran, the Ayatollah is the one who makes decision of what's happening there. And that's why they engage in that horrible war with Israel, you know. And because they decided in Iran, and weakening Israel is not just weakening Israel, it's weakening the West. And this is the way to attack America, and Israel is used as a front fortress of the United States. That's how they view it, and it's actually it's a fact. I mean, yes, the sovereignty and all that, but this is the way to Washington, D.C., and to other kind of assets of a democracy in the West. And everybody knows that in the region, except for many Americans are completely unaware of the picture. You see those demonstrations, they go, you know, freedom. What freedom? Freedom to whom? I mean, this whole thing is it's a completely misconcept of what's happening, you know. I mean, even that, uninvolved, you know, I mean, yeah, of course, you feel sorry for innocent, you know, children and baby, right? But they belong to a nation. It's not that just like the completely, you know, uninvolved. Look at that. Israel released 4 hostages today, or a couple of days ago. And they are in Nusirat. It's an area in Gaza Strip. And they're in buildings next to people, so-called uninvolved, innocent. They knew who they are. They are there to protect them. And that's what they do. It's like a human shield to those people. That operation cost them about 200 people death, 200, to release those. So are those completely uninvolved, innocent? This is a very difficult thing. We go and live by the rules that completely don't have a bearing on our reality anymore. And it's considered to be so politically incorrect to even say something I'm going to say right now. Somebody came, he was a city manager for the towns here around, and I met him a few months ago, and he said to me something along that line, oh, you're killing people, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Okay, well, these people are not the intention of Israel, and this is cynical what the UN was doing recently, putting Israel together with Hamas, with ISIS in the same list. This world of what's called the New World Order has in complete bankruptcy, ideological bankruptcy, for a long time. It's getting really to an extreme level. And the whole thing of the Geneva, the whole idea of the United Nations was born because of the Holocaust that was done to the Jewish people, because of the Shoah. That's why they say, well, we need to find a way. And look who is now hit by the harshest way from trying to defend itself, Israel. I mean, what do they do? I mean, look, you're fighting an enemy that is hiding behind children. According to the Geneva Convention, if somebody shoots at you from anywhere, school, mosque, you're allowed to shoot him back. That's all what Israel did. Nothing beyond that. And look at the condemnation. Look at those Hollywood, celebrities and how, this is unbelievable. So the city manager in one of the towns around here talks to me, and the tone was a little careful because we're face to face, right? It's kind of, and he's American, so polite, and but still said very hard, oh, you were killing it. And I said, well, let me ask you something. Let's say at your home you found out that you have been infested by rats. Bad rats, and one of them bit your daughter as she was sleeping on the cheek, and she has infection and she's been treated. Now what do you do? The first thing, something to eradicate it, pest control, good. And you'll go there and you will start eradicating, and then you'll see two baby rats. And you'll say, oh, don't touch the parents because we may hurt the uninvolved little bit. Right? That's what you do? I said, no. Very difficult to answer that. So you'll not touch the rat that bit your daughter's cheek because next to her there is a baby rat. So he didn't do anything to your daughter. You'll save them. Yeah, that's what you'll do. I mean, you understand how ridiculous the whole concept is. Somebody is trying to kill you, but you said, so you need to go there and be taken as a lamb to slaughter. Well, it happened to us in the history before, right? Lamb to the slaughter. And this is not what we do. But go and explain it. You can't. Even now it's hard to say it. I mean, maybe to you, believers that understand, go try to say it to the general population. Oh, you're killers. Blah, blah, blah. You can't even defend. The whole structure of rules are twisted. They're not. How do you apply that? With that, what America will do if it will be attacked by similar attack that Israel suffered? Let's say 1,500 on that day of October 7th, you multiply it, you talk about 35,000 Americans in one day being slaughtered. So America is going to be very nice and watch and uninvolved. Dream on. I heard some senators and I heard some other leaders, and she actually said, I think the governor of New York, he said, well, let's say if Canada does something to that, and forget Canada, right? Those words she said, right? So, and this is Canada. This is not Hamas, God forbid, So, hypocrisy in full scale, that's what's happening. Hypocrisy in full scale. And we need to drop the mask for those people and expose them. Let's go back here. Amen. Let's go back here. So the rest of the chapter, the rest of this chapter 1 has many names. has many names here. So we're going to skip that, Like for Shimeon, Shlumiel, the son of Tzuri Shaddai, and Yehuda, Nachshon, the son of Aminadab, and Issachar. Those are the heads of the families that this chapter enumerates one by one. But I'm going to verse 49 in chapter 1 in Numbers, in that chapter, in Numbers 1, verse 49, and it says, Achat Mate Levi, only shall not count the tribes of Levi, nor take a census of them among the people of Israel. Now, why do they single out the tribe of Levi, Levi in Hebrew? What was the reason to single them out? Well, don't census, don't count them at that point. But there was another census later on that they did, they were counted. What? You said something? What? Yes, they're meant to be, right? They're meant to be later on the priest, and not only the priest, but also the servants of the tabernacle, which is a big thing. There's a whole operation of how to do that. But don't count them. At that point, don't census them. Lo tisa. And the word here is lo tisa. And you're not, lo tisa et rosham, the word tisa is like to lift up. Don't lift up their heads among the people of Israel. Okay, so we'll talk about a word that relates to that, but I'm looking at the time here. So let me go on quickly. All right, so, and then the second thing is putting them together and placing them in particular areas around the center of the camp. Who is going to be on the right? Who is going to be on the left? Each one in particular parking place there. And so this is not a parking. They are not in a stationary situation. They are parking at night, or at some times that they needed to rest or pray. And in other time, they're moving, okay? So they had to do it in the same order. And this is very important because you know what happened? You're getting too close to the center, and then you're considered to be human beings. You consider starting competition between people. Why he is so close and why? So God set it up at the beginning so there'll be law and order, even in the desert as they move through the desert. So the second chapter, we skip the second chapter because it's only names and locations. But you said it, the Levites will be, and the word Levi in Hebrew, one of the tribes of Israel, right? And who knows the meaning of the word Levi? Okay, he was one of the sons, Levi. And the mom called him like that, and she said, maybe now, he was the son of Leah, right? And she said, maybe now my husband will accompany me, because the husband kind of ignored her. He loved the other one. And she tried to satisfy him, to try to make him happy. And she wasn't. She was very sad. And she said, well, and he was born and said, Levi, I gave you a son now. Levi means accompanier. Somebody would, and maybe now my husband will accompany me, walk along with me, not leave me alone. Kind of sad, right? But that's the name Levi. And that's exactly the purpose and the cause of, and the purpose of the tribe of Levi. The tribe of Levi, just like Levi the son, was accompanying Israel throughout the desert and also in the land itself. There are those in the temple that are accompanying Israel. Unlike the other tribes of Israel, Levi never got a parcel of land when they entered. There was no land for the Levites. All the others, Reuben and Zevulun, which is our area where we live in northern Israel, and all of them got a parcel of land in Canaan, but the Levites were not. Their job, and they had to be fed by the other Israelites. So because they didn't have a parcel of land, they could not do anything or agriculture, and they are kept for the priesthood and for the service of the temple. So in chapter 3, again, giving the whereabouts of Aaron and Moses on Mount, at the day that God spoke to Moses in Mount Sinai. And again, many names here. And the high priest, Aaron, and Aaron is there. And there is something there in verse 3. I'll read it to you. In verse 3, it says, chapter 3, verse 3 in Numbers, these are the names of the sons of Aaron, the priest who were anointed, whom he consecrated to minister in the priest's office. But look what happened, something very strange, and the word is here also strange. And Nadav ve'Avihu, and Abihu in English, Nadav and Abihu. Why Abihu? I mean, what's wrong in English to say Avihu? Why King James and other English Bibles had to distort almost every name? You know, what is the point? I mean, I showed it to you last time, Pastor Mark showed it to you. I don't know who, I did it to, about the name Jesus, right? So the name did not even, there was no J in English up to 300 years ago. No such thing. So it was Jesus, right? And so why is the need there to change it and to add the J, for instance? But here, the name of that man, of that person, is Avihu. And Avihu has a meaning in Hebrew. He is my father. That's Avihu. Or he's my father. Avi is father. Avi, my father, who is, right? So they had to do it and say Abihu. So I think Pastor Mark recently kind of fed up with that practice, and he's changing some names to the proper name, bringing back the Bible as it should be, the English Bible. You know, this is pretty nice. We start doing it lately, you know, and some names are completely unbearable to be distorted this way, and it's time that somebody will do it for the future generations, you know. So Avihu, okay, so, but look at that. And Nadav and Avihu died before the Lord when they offered strange fire before the Lord. Whoop. What is a strange fire before the Lord? What did they offer there? Strange fire. Yes, right, exactly. I heard that. They did as they did in every other time. They put the fire in order to glorify God. They didn't do anything really wrong, right? They did it, but at that time, well, there's many commentaries. Called Esh Zara, a strange fire, or a foreign fire, even in Hebrew. There was supposed to be fire coming up from heaven, God, to do a demonstration of, you know, like an audio-visual thing there. You know, mainly visual. A fire is supposed to come up from heaven down right there to the center there, and this is a big demonstration of God's involvement. And they put the fire at the same time. So that fire may obstruct the fire of God. And that's why it's called the strange fire. And that's why they were punished and they died because of this, you know. So this is the Esh Zara. Okay, so here is also the giving the jobs to the high priest. And God spoke to Moses to say, bring the tribe of Levi near and present them before Aaron the priest, and they may minister to him. They're setting up the rules. They're going to be minister to the Aaron and the priest. And you know, something about the priest, they are allowed one time, or also, it's kind of very picky, I don't know exactly when, but on Yom Kippur, the high priest can go to the Holy of Holies, right? The Ark. We showed it. If you're here at the time, we did a whole session on that. The gold, and so only the high priest could go near. The other people could not go near. Even if they just approaching that, they will die. They couldn't get close. But Aaron, the high priest, was, right? And so are his sons that are serving him. So they're saying, well, who is going to help them? They need help too. So the Levite, look at this, is the hierarchy of support in the system of the tabernacle. And so they all serve him. And Shamru et Mishpato, and they shall keep his charge and the charge of the whole congregation before the tent of meeting to do the service of the tabernacle. And they shall keep all the instruments of the tent of meeting and the charge of the people of Israel to do service of the tabernacle. This is the tabernacle it is the heart of the camp. This is the heart because this is at the time the dwelling place of the Lord. The tabernacle, the dwelling place of the Lord went with the camp. And there are instructions, very detailed instructions. What do they do? When they arrive at some place, they need to put it apart. The whole thing of around the tabernacle, they need to put it apart. Disassemble it and put it down. And when they go, they need to raise it. And that brings me to a word. Gee, I'm looking at the time. How do I get there? Okay. The word is, it's a very interesting one. Let me go and put it on the screen. I don't know if it will be clear enough. Okay, one more thing before I do that. Let's look here at Numbers 3, verse 13. Okay, so God said to, later on he counts also, he does a census also to the Levites, and he gets the leftover numbers. But here is how he does that. וידבר אדוני אל משה, and God speak to Moses to say, and I, behold, have taken the Levites from among the sons of Israel instead of all the firstborn who opened the matrix. What is this matrix here? What? Yeah, the womb, right? The matrix. Open the matrix among the people of Israel. Therefore, the Levites shall be mine. Hope, ownership. We hear here ownership. The Levites belongs to God. They don't belong to anybody else. God, this is an ownership. He said, "V'hayu li haleviim." The Levites are mine. But not only the Levites are God's. Listen to this. In verse 13, fascinating. It says, because all the firstborn are mine, for on the day that I struck the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I consecrated to me all the firstborns of Israel, both men and beast, mine shall they be. I am the Lord. So the firstborn in every family actually don't belong to their parents, they belong to God. This is an ownership of the firstborn, and so are the Levites. But the Levi is not the firstborn child, right? He still belongs to God. Why is it so important to God to point out what belongs to him? This is mine, this is not mine. What is the reason for that? Why is it important to state that the firstborn are mine? Well, number one is protection, right? The firstborn. Number two is the ranking. Okay, so the time is really, what time we Jill, 10 o'clock? Oh, wow, I can't even do this. Okay, so, okay, but let's do this. Okay, okay, let me go in quickly here. I remember it, I don't need it. Okay, but you need to see a picture maybe. Hold on. Okay, here. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Let's go to the New Testament. New Testament, look quickly here. Matthew chapter 4. Then was Jesus, or Yeshua, led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. Well, the devil is, of course, the Satan. It's a temptation. Listen to this. And when we had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterwards and hungered, right? He was starving. And when the tempter came to him, now they call him in a nickname, the tempter came to him and said, if thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread. This is a test, right? Well, you're saying you're Son of God. Go ahead, turn it. Let's see you doing that. It's a temptation, right? You'll see, Pastor Mark will kind of link everything back to where it is in the Old Testament. I'm going fast on that one. And what happens to him is, I'll do an impromptu translation from Hebrew. And he said, well, it's written that not on the bread alone should men live, but on the word that utters by the mouth of God. Okay, that's a quotation from the Bible, of course. So Satan says, all right, didn't work. That trick did not work. Let's try something else here. And Satan take him to the city here. And he placed him there. And he put him on the corner of the roof of the temple. This is really, this is Temple Mount, so it's a mountain there, right? And he says to him, well, if you're the Son of God, you know, God is eternal, there's no problem. Why don't you jump down? Because it's written that his angel will carry you over their hands. You'll be fine, don't worry about that. Okay, so if you're that, go ahead, go jump. So does he jump? No. And he said to them, and he said to him, Jesus said unto him, it is written again, he is reprimanding the Satan, and he said to him, thou shalt not tempt the Lord your God, right? Don't tempt him. So you don't need to tempt him, don't test him, you don't need to test him. Trust him, but don't test him. What is he doing here? I put together in an article, and I called it contemptuous respect. On one hand, and this had to do with a lot of people's attitude to Satan. I noticed many people are afraid of Satan. When I first came to America, I spoke, oh, Satan, oh, you know, terrified of devil. This is not the attitude in most Israel, right? Devil, come on, no big deal. You know, we don't really worry. And is it because of ignorance there? Could be. Why is this kind of a differentiation between the attitudes to Satan, understanding, recognizing the power of Satan, or not? You know, one of the most compelling dialogues in the Bible takes place between Yeshua, Jesus, and the Satan. It is conducted like a duel, except for the unusual weapons they were using, words instead of swords. But those are not just words. They were mostly Old Testament quotations thrown at each other like sharp spears. It was interesting to see how Satan quoted Psalm 91:11 to 12 to trap Yeshua, Jesus, into doom. But it is doubtful that you even realize the full scope of Yeshua's answer. We know that Jesus said, it said that thou shalt not tempt your God, the Lord. You may remember that this is possibly referring to either Exodus 17:2 or to Deuteronomy 6:16. But who could imagine the shocking fact that Yeshua, Jesus, defined Satan's attempt to bring him to death by quoting a verse from the very chapter which prophesied his own birth. You know, look at that. His own birth. King Ahaz says, I will not ask, neither will I tempt the Lord. Therefore the Lord himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a young woman, it is with a child, and she will bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. You know the word, you know the name Emmanuel, Kelly? Is it amazing and exciting? This is really something. Look at it, the very first verse that prophesies his birth. You know, that's Isaiah 7:12-14. This name means God is with us. That's what Emmanuel means, right? The verbal exchange between Jesus and Yeshua and the Satan is fascinating and can be labeled as contemptuous respect. I never heard that, I made it up, but this is what it is. He is not completely contemptuous with him because he does recognize the power of Satan, and people, well, we understand the devil and the adversary has power. He has power, maybe vested by God to him for the testing, but he has power. So he doesn't say, hey, you know, you take a hike. He doesn't, right? He treated him with respect, but at the same time, you can see by the answer that each answer is a deep contempt. So it's a combo of contempt and respect. and I coined it as contemptuous respect. This is part of my Bible Mysteries under Hebrew Light. It's an online trainer, basically, of different aspects of that. This is part of that, but there are many others. The idea is that you don't completely disrespect him, and at the same time, when you give him the respect of the power that he has Satan, right? But at the same time, you need to be contemptuous and keep him away, because otherwise you're falling into the trap of the satanic trap. So his weapon, defeating Satan, it is. This is perhaps the best defense for anyone who needs to push away evil force, first dropping the fear and then adhering to God's words. And this is the weapon that he was using, bringing up God's words to defeat. Okay, that's a different chapter already. I think I passed the time by 4 minutes. We'll stop here. And thank you so much. I didn't cover almost even half of what I planned to do, but apologize. All right. Maybe next time. Okay, thank you. Toda rabah. Shalom.
Thank you, Dr. Ben-Gidi, very much. We're going to take a break for a few minutes. Don't go too far away, please. In about 10 or 15 minutes, we'll come back and have a time of worship, and then Dr. Ben-Gidi will continue with his teaching. Oh, we have a different teacher. Oh, thank you. Okay, good. Well, I'm going to let you introduce him when that time comes. Let's all stand, please, and let's say together, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, Creator and King of the universe. Bless us with your Torah of truth. You have blessed us with the whole counsel of your living word. By the power of your Holy Spirit, through the completed work of Messiah Yeshua, you alone have planted among us life eternal. Blessed are you, Lord our God." Take a break.
이 세 문자가 있습니다.
What this tells us is God wants to speak to us in the wilderness.
이것은 무엇을 뜻하죠? 하나님께서 우리에게 광야에서 말씀하시고 하자 하는 것을 알 수 있어요.
We have to get away from all the noise.
우리는 모든 소음에서 나와야 됩니다.
Our special guest this morning was Dr. Daniel Ben-Gidi, and Mark, if in case you tuned in a little bit late, is not here this morning. He's in South Korea preaching God's word over there, and we ask God's blessing upon him. Dr. Ben-Gidi, would you come forward, please, once again? You have a special guest, and I want you to introduce him to us.
Sure. Thank you very much. I want to introduce my grandson, Nahman Ben-Gidi. He has been with the IDF for long, 5 years of his young age. And he wants to share a little bit. Pastor Mark spoke with him and asked him to share a little bit about his experience. He's in the special unit of air defense in Israel that a lot of us in Israel owe our lives to them. And it's like one of the most tremendous units of the Israeli military and air force, basically, that part of what they do is we can talk about. Some other parts are completely out of the range of conversation. But they're doing day and night a lot of amazing work and to defend the country and to defend the people. And that's why so many lives, so many beyond belief have been saved in Israel of what they do. And he will share a little bit of his experience. Part of his work was also, besides of being in the underground, in the headquarters of that, he was also mediating between the heads of Israel when they came to get an idea of what is done on the field to defend. Not, be surprised, they don't know the details. Prime Minister, President, they had to come, and he had kind of an honor to introduce them to some of the systems. And also international journalists that came, and they had to protect that they were not exposed too much. I mean, Israel had to show some of what we have, but the media is more hungry than what the cow was willing to give. and they had to supervise and what cut out from their stories, and he was doing that, had to be nice with them and fight them at the same time. So that's another frontier, you know. So Nahman, without me much talking, you can talk.
Okay, so first of all, Shabbat Shalom, dear friends. My name is Nahman Ben Gigi, as my grandpa just said, and it is a profound honor to stand before you today. In my 23 years of age, I have been privileged to serve my country in various capacities, but none so defining as my military service as an information security officer at the Israeli Air Defense Command. My journey, Can you put on the presentation? Okay. So my journey led me through the horrible days of the October 7th war, where the resilience of our people and the strength of our faith were tested and ultimately prevailed. I served at the Operational Control Unit, who support the field with logistics, mechanicals, healthcare, and of course, managing the IDF's Air Defense Operation Room. Does anyone recognize the man behind? Okay. So we also connect between the different air defense units in the field and provide information and status to the headquarters in Tel Aviv. Israeli Air Defense Forces consist of 3 layers of defense using 4 main systems. Iron Dome with a defense range of 45 miles, Patriot with a defense range of 100 miles, David Sling with 160 miles, and of course the Arrow with around 1,500 miles of range, about half the width of the United States. So, there's a video shown. You can look at the video, it will explain, and I will talk meanwhile. So the system are powered by missile defense batteries, which contain 3 main components. This animation is made for Iron Dome explanation, but it's the same principle to all systems. They are also mobile, so we can move them to where they are needed. So what's going on is, first, a radar unit detects an incoming rocket and relays information about its speed and trajectory to the control center. The control center computer will calculate if the rocket is going to hit populated areas or essential assets. If it is, a missile is fired from the launcher, which contains 20 interceptor missiles. The missiles receives constant guidance updates from the control center in its internal radar. The missile destroys the incoming rocket by exploding near it. The goal is to do it far away from populated areas, minimizing damage on the ground. So most of the people think the Iron Dome actually hits the rocket, but it's not. It's just exploding next to it, and then it's just spreading the parts all over as far as we can from the populated area. Okay, now let's talk a little bit of numbers. From the beginning of the war, 40 rockets were fired from Syria towards Israel territory. 4,100 rockets were fired from Lebanon, and 9,300 rockets were fired from Gaza from the start of the war. That gives us a total of 13,440 rockets fired towards Israel, trying to hit Israeli civilians. Let's not forget the Iranian attack on Israel that took place on the 14th of April 2024. I'm sure everyone heard about that, where Iran fired 120 ballistic rockets, around 170 explosive drones, and 36 cruise missiles at the same day. These numbers prove the importance of a functioning good air defense that Israel rely on every single day. On the Shabbat morning of October 7th, I woke up at 6:30 a.m. to the sound of rocket sirens and explosions above my apartment in Tel Aviv. 2.5 hours later, I was already on the ground with the Air Defense Control Room, dealing with missions I have never imagined I'll deal with. Same as my brother, Aaron. He is the right hand of Deputy Battalion Commander of Paratroopers 101 Battalion. He is the second from the right, the handsome one. Ronnie fought, we call him Ronnie, and he fought a total of 100 days in Gaza as part of the effort to destroy Hamas and bring the hostages back home. Also, same as my sister. Oh, there's a little video here. This is Ronnie, my brother, in Gaza. Also, my sister, Odell. This is Odell, who is a commander at a mechanical unit in an operational F-15 squadron who is working day and night in order to destroy Hamas. While sending more than 3,000 terrorists to the Israeli territory, Hamas fired nearly 3,000 rockets towards Israeli civilians in the first 4 hours of the attack. That's a challenge that the Israeli Air Defense Forces had faced for the first time in history. Through collaboration, ingenuity, and unwavering faith, we were able to overcome the challenges that confronted us, ensuring that crucial information continued to flow from our forces on the front lines with the minimum leaked information possible. It was a small victory amid a larger conflict, but it served as a poignant reminder of the power of unity and the resilience of human spirit. Standing in front of you today, Christians who cherish and love Israel, I am reminded of the profound bond that exists between our two communities. It is a bond forged in shared values, a shared history, and a shared destiny, rooted in the pages of the Bible that we hold dear. Sorry. The October 7th war was not merely a conflict of arms, but a testament to the enduring spirit of the Israeli people. In the face of overwhelming odds, we stand firm, fortified by the knowledge that we are not alone. Your unwavering support and prayers are a source of strength and comfort in our darkest hours, reminding us that we are a part of a larger family, bound together by our love for Israel and our faith in its ultimate redemption. As I reflect on my own journey, I am reminded of the words of Isaiah, who spoke of a time when the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat. It is a vision of peace, of harmony, and of reconciliation, a vision that we, as both Christians and supporters of Israel, hold dear in our hearts. But achieving that vision requires more than mere words. It requires action, determination, and above all, faith. Faith in ourselves, faith in each other, and faith in the knowledge that together we can overcome any obstacle and realize our shared dream of a better, brighter future for all. As I conclude my remarks today, I am reminded of the words of King David, who wrote, "Behold, how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity." May we continue to strive for that unity, to work hand in hand towards a future of peace, prosperity, and reconciliation. Thank you.